Roman Holiday is the film that introduced the world to Audrey Hepburn. Yes, the film that would go on to win her an Academy Award for Best Actress. The first time we've covered William Wyler on the podcast, so we're going to get into all of that. The return as well of Gregory Peck. We're going to get into all this and more this week on the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Hello everyone, yes, and welcome back to episode 42 of the podcast, I believe.
43, believe it
43,
or not.
43. Missed out on one there, so
Jesus.
we're getting very, very close now to that all important number of 50, the half century nearly. So, yeah.
What are we going to do for that, actually?
Yeah, we're going to have to come up with something. By the way, that voice you can hear, that person you can see, is my co-host, not guest host, Harry Bailey. How are you doing this week,
Hello,
Harry?
everyone. Yeah, very good. Very, very good. Everybody watching, feel free to leave a like on this video, comment if you enjoyed Roman Holiday or not, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. Yeah, I'm good. I am looking forward to watching some movies, to be honest. We record this on my day off, so I basically cram Mondays. We'd record on Mondays. I cram Mondays with movies. And yeah, I'm looking forward to watching some movies. That being said, just watch Roman Holiday. And yeah, it's surprise, it's very good. It's not the first time I've seen it or anything, but I haven't seen it in ages. So it was a good film to watch. Obviously, I think Audrey Hepburn is incredible.
Yeah.
She's been in so many good films. To name a few, Breakfast at Tiffany's is good, although dated. She's fantastic in it, though. Wait Until Dark is fantastic. It's such a good thriller.
Charade.
She's amazing in The Children's Hour, which is so good. She's amazing in Charade. Yeah, so good. Love Charade. As well as a bunch of other films. Like, Audrey Hepburn is so class, and this is one of her best performances, I would say. It's maybe not her best, but it's an incredible performance. She's so good at like small moments.
Yeah.
Like visually, she kind of opposite Gregory Peck. She gives him certain looks at certain times, and she just, I don't know. It's in the small scenes where she's just so good at basically getting an emotion out of the audience. Because yeah, it's a bit of an emotional film, certainly an emotional ending. And yeah, Gregory Peck as well. Nice to cover a good Gregory Peck film.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of done him dirty by covering Spellbound first.
And the parodying case.
Yeah, in the parodying case. Sorry, Gregory Peck. We didn't mean to just shit on you by covering some of your not so great movies, but we have a good one this week.
We do.
Yeah, William Wyler, great director. One of them ones, he's maybe not like a household name for your average cinema fan, but for like old movie fans, everybody kind of knows William Wyler as a really good director. He's directed a bunch of great films. And yeah, Roman Holiday is just one of those. It is a great film that I would definitely recommend. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is probably, like you said, it's up there for my favourite Audrey Hepburn performance, but it's probably the performance that most captures her kind of essence, like the thing that she was so amazing at. Just that kind of innate decency. There's a bunch of Audrey Hepburn performances and films that I can name where she's by far the best thing in the film, but the film itself is not that great at all. So that does happen quite a lot as well, where it's like she's by far on a better playing field than everyone else.
Here's looking at you, funny face.
Sabrina,
movie.
Love in the Afternoon.
Oh, Sabrina as well is another, yeah.
She's often
she's
cast
definitely the best part
alongside
of
like, and Gregory Peck is kind of a little bit older than her for sure, but she is often cast, or she was often cast alongside much older leading men. Where
she regularly played like really intelligent women.
Yeah,
therefore,
she did.
They felt to like pair her with someone who would like intellectually match her. So
Yeah.
who's intelligent enough to be opposite Audrey Hepburn? I don't know, an old guy, I guess.
Like, this film, actually, Roman Holiday, was initially conceived as a possible vehicle for Cary Grant, and you can see that in how it's written. Like, he does have that kind of rascally kind of slant to his performance, but I think Gregory Peck does pick up the baton quite well, certainly better than someone like Humphrey Bogart and Sabrina, or Gary Cooper in Love in the Afternoon, where it's like they're just playing it like they're sleepwalking. Really, I don't know. I can't really say anything else. It's just like she's by far better than everyone else in several films that I've seen. So it's good to see. Actually, it is good to see a film like this where she's not having to do all of the heavy lifting. Like, she does have someone
Yeah.
who's doing a lot of good stuff as well, on a good level. So I don't really have anything else about the film. Do you?
Well, it was a smash hit at the Oscars.
Yeah.
11 nominees, 3 wins, including obviously Audrey Hepburn for Best Actress. And yeah, to be honest, besides that, I don't really have much else to say other than that the film's very good and
Yeah.
that I'd recommend it. But yeah, I reckon we get on into Roman Holiday.
I think so, yeah. So, well, without further ado, we get into the film and we see Princess Anne, played by Audrey Hepburn. She's on a tour of Europe, and turns out she's a member of one of Europe's oldest ruling families. So they never say exactly where she's from. She does have an English accent, but it's mentioned that she goes to Buckingham Palace to visit. So I don't think she's meant to be.
I was always under the impression she was from Monaco, but that was just me.
That could be, yeah, that could be actually interesting. But yeah, she's
Yeah.
one of the oldest ruling families, so, you know, it's up for interpretation maybe. But yeah, Monaco is as good a guess as any, I suppose. She then gets a military kind of welcome in Rome, so she goes to Rome after Buckingham Palace, and Rome is meant to be the last stop on this kind of European tour. She gets like a regal announcement into the ball. She goes through this whole rigmarole where she is expected to kind of meet dozens and dozens of dignitaries and kind of members of the elite and stuff. So this is understandably kind of getting a bit tiresome after a while for her, so she slips off her shoe because she needs to scratch it. Then she has quite a bit of commotion, quite a bit of difficulty slipping this back on kind of undetected. She just about manages to do so though, and then she starts to dance with again one of these kind of dignitaries. And then that night she's getting ready for bed after a long day of kind of serving her country. She's bemoaning her nightgown. She's being told what the following day's itinerary is going to be, and she's only just finished this long day, this long grueling day. So she's in no mood to kind of hear about this kind of itinerary being laid out. So she starts to, like, understandably just kind of throw her toys over Plam a little bit, where it's like, can you just give me 5 minutes to myself without talking about what I have to do tomorrow? Just come on.
It's like every 15 minutes of her day is coordinated.
Yeah.
Every decision for her to make has been made for her. Every opinion she has is made for her.
Yeah.
She's basically just like, if anything, she's almost like an actress playing a role where she doesn't actually have any thoughts or opinions of her own, or she's not allowed to. She alludes to the fact that she already has given these speeches that she has to give dozens of times before, which I'd say is incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And she freaks out. She just snaps. She's like, I'm sick of this. I just want to live a normal life where I actually like get to make decisions and like do things that I like. So they sedate her.
Yeah.
The doctor comes in with a needle without any asking her, and just stabs it into her and sedates her, and says, that'll help you go to sleep. And she's like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's a new thing that I have. The general, who's in the room as well, just kind of he actually passes out from this scene. He's just freaked out by the whole thing because basically she's snapping at having to do her royal duties. So yeah, they sedate her. This is pretty grim stuff. But when they all leave the room, then she does in fact just sneak out. She sneaks out. She manages to get into the back of a van, which drives off. And from the back of the van, she just kind of watches as like young couples kind of drive around the streets and walk together. She eventually gets out of the van, and yeah, you can see that she's starting to yawn and starting to like knock into stuff. So the sedation is really starting to kick in. Meanwhile, a guy called Joe, your average Joe, get it, played by Gregory Peck, is finishing up a game of cards that he's winning, and him and his friend Irving actually. He decides to leave. He's going to quit while he's ahead, and as he goes down, he finds Anne asleep on the pavement, on this really small wall next to the pavement, and he wakes her up, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing, like, drunk at this hour?" And she starts reciting poetry, and he's like, "That's fucking weird. Normally these drunkards are not quite as well read as yourself." And he gets talking to her, and then eventually he feels bad, and he hails a taxi, and he goes to get in the taxi, but he just can't leave her there because she falls back asleep. He feels bad. And I think this scene is handled really well, just given the context of what happens and where it goes, as to portray Gregory Peck's character Joe in a good, like, at no point is it ever insinuated that what he's doing is taking advantage of her or being creepy or anything. He does everything in his power to just get her home first, and she just will not let him. She keeps saying that she lives in the Coliseum whenever he's asking her to tell the taxi man where to go. So he's like, right, okay, do you know what? We'll just drop me home first, and maybe she'll come around to her senses. So they go back to his, and he gets out, and he gives the taxi man way more money. And the taxi man's like, "Oh, you're very generous." And he's like, "Yep, right, see yous." And the taxi man's like, "Whoa, she's not my problem." And he's like, "Well, she's not my problem either." And the taxi man's basically like, "Well, I'm just gonna give her to the police. So they're just down there." And again, Joe's like, "Right, well, I don't want that happening because you don't want her getting, like, arrested for, like, public drunkenness or whatever people got arrested for back then." So he helps her out of the taxi, and then he tries to like walk her home, but she just won't. So he's like, "Fuck it." So he takes her back to his, and again he's pleading with her to just come to her senses and just, like, go home, but she won't. So he brings her up to his room, and again brings her into the room, and he's like, "Right, you sleep on the couch, I'm sleeping in my bed. Here are your pajamas. I'm leaving you to it." And she's like, "Will you undress me?" And he's like, "What?" Obviously, it's something that she's used to with servants and stuff, and she doesn't realize what she's saying. So he takes the belt off the, like, gown, but, like, nothing happens or anything. And he's like, "Ah, that's enough for me. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave the rest of it to you." And as well, he gives her pajamas, which that was part of her rant earlier, where she wants to live a normal life where she can just, like, sleep in pajamas. She's sick of sleeping in, like, 200-year-old gowns. She just wants to live like a normal person, so she gets her pajamas. And he goes out and comes back in after she's changed, and she has passed out asleep in his bed instead of on the couch, which he's not too pleased with. So he has to sleep on the rather small couch that he doesn't quite fit on. He's quite a tall man, is Gregory Peck. And the next morning he wakes up and she's still there, absolutely conked out asleep. So he just leaves her to it, basically.
To be fair, though, he doesn't just, like, go to sleep on the couch. He pulls off quite a risky move where he basically opens out the, like, sofa bed, and then he, like, kind of manages to, like, maneuver the sheets in such a way that he, like, basically throws her onto the sofa bed while she's asleep.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny stuff. Like, it's pretty risky stuff. It could easily have ended in, like, serious injury, but it didn't. So I guess fair play to him. But yeah, we hear a bulletin being spread over the radio about Princess Anne being unwell, because at this point the palace have become aware of the fact that she actually is not in her room at all. She's gone walking somewhere. She's gone, and obviously they don't want to spread fear and panic and kind of a consternation or whatever among the locals or among their own country. So they just kind of spread this falsehood that she's sick, and it doesn't turn out to be a great lie, because it would come back to going to bite them. But so at 11:45 the next morning, it is, and Joe wakes up and he realizes that he is very late for this engagement that he was meant to attend. So he hightails it to the office, and his boss is looking for him. He pretends that he pretends that he's already been at this engagement, because his boss says that, "Look, I need to see you now." And his boss is like, "Why are you only in now?" He's like, "I'm not only in now. I was off doing interviewing the princess, like the engagement that you gave me." And his boss knows that the princess is being reported unwell, which Joe was unaware of this moment. So he just gives him more and more rope, and he just lets Joe kind of dig his own hole and dig his own hole. And eventually he's like, "Well, I know everything you just said is bullshit, because the princess is sick." So obviously Joe has been left with egg on his face. But then when he manages to catch a glimpse of the newspaper, which is obviously reporting the princess's illness, and lo and behold, who is it? But it's the woman in his apartment. So he's like, "Oh crap!" So he does his kind of mind starts racing, and he calls this supervisor in his building, and he's like, "Will you check and see if there's a woman still there?" And he does, and he's like, "Yeah, there's a woman there. Good for you." Obviously, there's with the time, and then he then says, "Okay, what I need to do is hold her there. Do not let her leave. I'm gonna be there as soon as I can." So he says to his boss then, he says, "What would a real interview with this princess be worth?" And his boss says, "Oh, it could be a few $100, like if you got like a on the records kind of quotes." He's like, "No, I mean a real interview, like warts and all, like photographs, things that she would never be caught saying." And it's like, "Oh, that could be like a few grand, maybe $5,000. And Joe says, "Do you know what? I'm going to hold you to that." So they shake hands, and his boss says, "You know what? I don't think you're going to actually do this, so let's make a little side hustle. I'm going to bet you $500 that you're not going to get the story." And this obviously just makes Joe even more determined to go and get this exclusive interview with Princess Anne he's pretty convinced he can get anyway.
Yeah, he heads back then to the apartment that he lives in, and she's waking up. And she is totally confused as to everything that's happening, and he basically fills her in. He's like, "Yeah, no, I took you in last night." And she was like, "Oh, we spent the night together?" And he was like, if you use those words, they are true, I guess, but not that way. No, we didn't. But we did, but we didn't." And she's like, "Oh, right, okay." And he's like, "And what is your name?" He basically pretends to not know who she is. So Princess Anna comes up with the genius fake name of Anya. Yeah, nice. She kind of giggles at the whole situation because it's basically like the first time she's probably ever lived the life of a 20 something. And he's like, "Well, listen, I've no issues with you being here. There's no burden or anything on me. As a matter of fact, I can run you a bath or whatever if you want." And she's like, "Oh no, it's too much." He's like, "No, like it's no big deal." He goes and runs her a bath, and she goes to get in the bath. And as she does, he goes out to see his friend Irving. Well, he calls his friend Irving, who he was playing cards with the night before, who is a photographer. And he's basically like, "Yeah, we could be in for a lot of money here. I need you to meet me later on." And Irving's like, "All right, okay, no worries. I'll meet you for a coffee." He's like, "Okay, perfect." And whilst he's having this phone call, this very invasive maid comes into his apartment, finds Anna in the bathroom, and tries to kick her out while she's like naked. It's like, actually, woman, maybe just wait a second so that she can maybe put some clothes on instead of trying to kick her out of the fucking apartment. But yeah, when he does get back, obviously she must have said something to her because Anna is fully dressed, and she's just kind of taking in the views of normal society, people going to markets and buying stuff and walking in the street, making their own decisions. And he offers to take her out for breakfast, and she's like, "Oh no, you've done enough for me, thank you so much." And she insists that she has to go. She heads out, but obviously $5,000 is $5,000, especially in the 50s. So he follows her out, and he strategically bumps into her on the street not long after, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I have no money." And he's like, "Oh yeah, you don't. I forgot about that from last night. You actually don't have any money. How are you going to get around?" And she's like, "I have no idea." So he lends her 1,000 lira, and she's like, 1,000 lira. Obviously, she has no concept of money.
Money,
She's like, "Yeah, that's like $1. It's like $1 at home. It's actually not that much money." And she's like, "Oh, okay, thank you." And she agrees that she'll get it sent back to him, and she goes off on her merry way, basically just kind of living the life that she wanted to, I guess, going from market to market. A woman convinces her to buy a pair of sandals. Meanwhile, whilst Joe is watching from afar, he ends up getting conned into buying a giant melon. We've all been there. He then follows her a bit more as she then goes to the hairdressers. Well, it's called a barbers, interestingly.
Yeah.
Not that they should be like gender exclusive or anything, but just interesting that a guy cutting a woman's hair is called a barber. I don't know. Just thought that was an interesting sign of the times, I guess, because I went to call him a hairdresser in my notes, but that just shows what I know. But yeah, the barber is like genuinely mortified at the idea of cutting so much of her hair off. because she's got like this long, fucking lavish, curled hair, wavy hair. She's like, yeah, no, fuck it, cut it all off. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah, all of it. And he's like, oh, fuck. So he does cut it, and then eventually he's like, oh my God, like, look at you, you should be a model or whatever. And then he asks her out on a date to go to this dance later on that night at 9 p.m. And she doesn't turn him down, but she's like, I'd love to, but I can't, but I'd love to. And he's like, well, if you change your mind, I'll be at this dance. And she goes out and she kind of takes in a few more of the sights until strategically, again, Joe bumps into her and basically asks her out for lunch. Because, you know, what a coincidence if they'd bump into each other twice. It must be fate. They have to go out on a date. Good work, Joe. Good work. Oh, he also lies to her and says he's a fertilizer salesman.
Yeah. So they go to lunch and he buys champagne, and then he starts to like casually trying to pretend that he's doing what you do on a date, where he's asking her questions about herself, but really what he's doing is he's sneaking info about like her father.
He's getting the interview, yeah.
Who's the king. He's complained about his job in public relations in the past, and then Irving comes and finally arrives, and then he almost lets slip that he recognizes her. So what does Joe do? Joe like spills kind of a bit of water over his pants.
First he stomps on his foot.
Yeah, first he stomps on his foot
when he goes to call her the princess, and then he goes to call Joe a journalist. So then he knocks a drink on him, and then he says one more time, "Oh no, you're a ringer for the prince," and he just
kicks him straight over.
Like 300, just like kicks him. This is Sparta.
Yeah,
and he falls off his chair and hits the deck.
And
he explains then that a ringer is an American term for someone with lots of charisma.
Yeah,
which is a good save. Good
save. But yeah, Irving's like, I can take a hint, okay? Because Irving just believes that he is just not wanted. Like Joe just wants him to fuck off. He doesn't realize that he's just trying to get him to shut the hell up. So eventually Joe's able to pull Irving aside, and he's like, "Listen, I know who she is. Like, I'm not stupid. So just shut up." Like, then we go to like a whole security team on the airfield in Rome, coming outside the palace, where
Great
it's like a bunch of different security people, and it's like, so obviously there's like a manhunt about the.
Yeah, they're all dressed head to toe in 3-piece black suits, and the guy's like, they're meant to be inconspicuous, and he's like, you said plain clothes, but obviously because they're rich, that is plain clothes to them. It's a good line.
So the three then start to go sightseeing around Rome. So they go to the Colosseum. Irving has like his camera, which he actually did have like a lighter, a cigarette lighter that he was clearly some sort of camera, because he did light a cigarette for her. She's like, oh, it's my first cigarette. So obviously we're getting into pretty much know that like she obviously hasn't had that many experiences kind of that you would usually have. That you would usually have her age. But they go to the Colosseum. Irving's taking sly pictures of Joe and they get arrested. So she hops on like this, it looks like a Vespa maybe.
Yeah, it's a Vespa,
she hops on a Vespa and she starts to go joyriding. So obviously Joe's trying to get her off the bike. So he hops on as well because he's trying to get her to stop, but they just keep going very, very fast. Eventually they get pulled over by the police, so they get arrested. But it turns out they're able to kind of talk their way out of the situation, because Joe kind of shows him his American press badge, and she's like, what do you mean a press badge? He's God, like, I just carry that thing around me for when I get into scrapes.
Gets you out of a jam.
Yeah, exactly. When you get into scrapes, it's good. So he just about manages to kind of sidestep that little issue. Then they go to like visit this spooky statue. So Joe's like, if you put your hand in, the myth is that like it'll bite down and cut your hand off. So Anne is kind of deciding whether or not to do it. And she kind of chickens out, and then Joe puts his hand in, and then he pretends to be like, whoa, he pretends like that his arms get cut off.
He pulls his sleeve out, and his hand is in his sleeve, and he pretends it's been bitten off.
So that's pretty funny stuff. Is like just kind of a whole montage now about them. Obviously, they are connecting, but he obviously is hiding his true identity, his true motives.
And he takes her then to this wall at the end of all of these trips, this wall of like inscriptions of basically a guy put a inscription up of a thing that he wanted to happen on this wall during the war, and it just kind of became a trend. Then people would all put their wishes, and then they'd put up more inscriptions whenever their wishes did come true, basically as to improve the sentiment, I guess. And she just thinks it's amazing. And again, Irving gets another good photo of her, and then he sends Irving on his way because the two want to go dancing. And the two go dancing, and lo and behold, they bump into the barber. But not only is the barber there, but two of the plain clothes officers, the guys in the black suits with black fedoras, spot her there, even though she's got much shorter hair and she's obviously not in the same clothes, so she looks a little bit different. But yeah, they spot them, but Joe spots the guys in the black suits as well. So he's very quick to just kind of take her over to the corner and talk to her, whatever. And then the barber comes over and asks for a dance. And when he does so, Irving shows back up again and manages to get a picture of her dancing with the barber. And then one of the guys in one of the black suits comes over, and then he asks to dance with her, and he tells her, like, I know who you are, you're coming with me, there's a car outside waiting for you, which is, he could so be trying to kidnap her, and she would, so she starts screaming out for Joe when your man tries to drag her away, and then Joe and Irving fight off the Secret Service, I guess. And then the barber, I just like that the barber joined in as well. He also helped
good for him.
fight them off. People get like sent into the river or the canal. Like people are just getting beat up left, right, and center. It's like WWE. There's like chairs being smashed over people's heads.
She gets a guitar and
a great moment then where she smashes a guitar over a guy's head. And Irving's like, in his head, he's like, oh my God, that would be an amazing picture. And he goes, do it again. And he gets the camera and he takes a picture of her smashing the guitar over the guy's head a second time. And then Joe and Anne manage to escape further down the canal, where they get to this wall, and they get past the wall, and then one of the Secret Service agents just appears from nowhere, just punches him in the face. He falls in the canal, so she jumps in with him, and the two of them then swim to the shore to safety, where they're absolutely drenched, and then they share their first kiss. Very wholesome.
Very, very wholesome. So they got back to his apartment and they start to dry off. She says that she has to kind of go now, so she understands that, look, it's time to kind of go home, it's time to go back to the apartment, because there's been a whole international incident.
Word spreads on the radio when they get back that Princess Anna is still incredibly sick, and that people are worried about her, basically.
And there's been a whole international incident that is now happened because she's been off, gone AWOL, and she's been off kind of sightseeing and stuff. So she's like, look, it's been great, but I'm gonna have to go back. So they hug and they embrace, and it's like a really wonderful kind of sequence from here that from William Wyler. I beg your pardon. I just assume everything good in the podcast is because of
Billy Wyler. Billy Wyler, if you will.
Exactly. So Joe they get in the car, and Joe drops Anne off at the mansion. She's like, what I want you to do is, when I get out of the car, I'm going to walk up there and I want you to just drive away. I don't want you to kind of look at me and whatever and stuff. So
they don't want to say goodbye, basically.
No, exactly. So they're both subdued, but they are kind of obviously sad, and they kiss one final time. She starts to cry, and then she gets out of the car and she walks towards the palace, and then he drives off. And then she walks in, and she obviously the staff are waiting for her. They're obviously quite shaken. They've obviously been worrying sick for the last 24 hours. She says, if it wasn't because of the duty of care I feel towards my country, I literally wouldn't have come back. So don't tell me, don't sit there and tell me.
Yeah, one of the guys decides to say, what were you thinking? You need to think about your commitment to your country. And she said, that's the only reason
only reason I'm still here. Exactly.
The only reason I came back is because of my commitment to my country. Otherwise, you would have never seen me again.
She says, I'm not going to tell you where I was or who I was with or what we did. She's like, okay, I'm going to bed now. Everyone leave. And then, so she is more assertive, and she's more willing to kind of take control of what she actually wants to do. And she does. There's one moment as well where the maid tries to get her to stay, but she's like, no, you can go too. So she's just, she's much more willing to kind of assert herself. So we see a great scene then of Joe and Anne both looking out the window, obviously not the same window, but they both they cut back and forth between. They're just both kind of looking out the window like Ross and Rachel style, just like looking out and just looking very forlorn. And then Joe's boss knocks on his door the following morning, and he says, "Oh, like I heard you got the story. Good for you, lad." And Joe says, "No, I didn't. I don't know where you got that information from, but that didn't happen." And the boss is like, "This is literally worth $5,000 to you. It's worth so much money to the newspaper. What are you talking about? Like, I know you have the story." And again, he's denying it and denying it. And Irving charges in, and again, he's about to spill the beans. So again, Joe spills a bunch of water on his pants. Poor Irving.
And kicks him as well, trips him up.
Yeah, poor Irving, man. He's been through the wars in this whole situation. Joe, though, he does manage to just about convince his boss that he's actually telling the truth, which obviously he isn't. But he says, "Look."
Yeah, it's a great line where he has the photos, obviously, of all their escapades, and the boss is trying to grab it, and he's like, "Oh no, it's a picture of the dames that Irving likes. You wouldn't like it. Well, maybe you will." And he goes to hand it to him, and the guy's like, "Oh, don't try and change the subject." So he like subliminally makes his boss Hennessy not want to take the photos off him. It's a great little bit of writing that.
And because they had that little side hustle from earlier, well, Joe now owes his boss $500, and he says to him, "Look, take $50 a week out of my paycheck, so that's how I'm going to pay you back there." Yeah. Which, by the way, he already owes 2 months' rent to his landlord, and he already owes his boss a bunch of money. So it's like he's in quite a bit of debt. Like the whole point of getting this money that we probably should have mentioned is that
clear his debts.
And he said he wanted to go back to New York and work for a real newspaper, because obviously this beat that he's working on at the moment, this beat in Rome, is not really financially sustainable, and it's not really.
It's an expose, if anything.
Yeah, it's not work that he wants to be doing. So yeah, and then the boss leaves, and then they take out the photos, and Joe starts to like marvel about the photos that Irving took. Like there's a bunch of like
they start coming up with headlines for each photo, which is pretty good.
So great. Yeah. So then Joe's like, "I'm not writing the story, Irving." So Irving tries to get him because he obviously wants the money. He's like, "Look, just come on. It's a lot of money for both of us." And Joe's like, I can't do it. Like. So
and he says to Irving as well, he's like, "I can't stop you from selling the photos, but I'm not going to write the story."
And then he does say, "I'm going to go to the Q&A this morning." Like, why not? Like, it's a gig, isn't it? Like, so I'm going to go to the Q&A for the press at the palace. So Q&A for Princess Anne. So when they get there, they arrive at this like big mansion that we saw earlier. Princess Anne walks out, and she's obviously surveying the room, and she's looking out, and then she catches a glimpse of Joe, and her face drops. And she starts to make a pointed comment then about she's asked a question, and she makes a pointed comment about believing in relations between people. And then Joe then pipes up, and he says, "I believe your faith will not be unjustified." So then she kind of has a little smile then, where she's like, "Okay, he's not gonna sell me out after all." And she's like, "I'm so glad to hear you say that." So then she's asked different questions about her favourite city on the tour. And obviously, as a member of a royal family, everything is meant to be diplomatic. It's meant to be, you don't show favour to any country above anyone else. It's all just like platitudes, empty platitudes. But then she says, they were all great. And then she says, "Actually, no, Rome by far. Like, Rome was by far my favourite." Which doesn't go down well with the staff. They're kind of flailing around then. They're like, "She's not supposed to say that." But she says, "I'm going to truly cherish my memories here."
Yeah, and she then says, again, she goes off script again, and she says she wants to individually meet each member of the press. She goes down and she shakes their hands until she gets to Irving, and Irving hands her the envelope of all the photos, and he's like, "May I offer you this envelope of commemorative photos of your trip to Rome?" And she just sneaks a peek and sees the one of her smashing the guitar over the guy's head. He's like, "You may."
It's so great.
And then, this ending is incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just from acting alone, because there's very little dialogue exchanged. She shakes Joe's hand. They lock eyes with each other. She then, where she was like saying a greeting to each person in their respective language, after Joe, she just can't get the words out. She's just shaking people's hands. She gets up to the stage, and then she turns back around and locks eyes with him again, and they just exchange a look. and then it is announced Princess Anne is gonna retire or whatever, back to her room. So she walks out very slowly. She shares one last look with Joe, and she leaves. And Joe hangs around as the room just clears out, and he hangs around waiting for her. And there's no sign of her. So he slowly, this shot is amazing. He slowly just starts walking by himself out of this grand hall with all this grand architecture behind him, kind of leaving the royalty behind him, so to speak. And when he gets to the entrance of the door, he stops again, and he just turns and looks for a few more seconds just in case she does come out, and she doesn't. So he just kind of, he's like, and he walks out, and that's the end. I just think that ending's fucking amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, it's cool.
Not every love story ends in the big romantic kiss and they get together. Maybe they do end up together, but it's perfectly ambiguous, and the way it's shot and the way it's acted is so good. I love the ending of this film. It's one of my favorite endings to a romantic movie, especially of the classics. I think Gregory Peck is really good, particularly towards the end of the film, as his character becomes more and more infatuated with Anna. And then, of course, Audrey Hepburn is Audrey Hepburn. She is class. She's such a great actress. And yeah, overall, 4 stars. Really, really liked it. I had given it 4.5 the first time I saw it. I gave it 4 this time. It'll probably go back up and then back down and then back up, and then, like, it's a great film. And just depends on the mood sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes you're really into a film, and sometimes you're maybe not as into it, but it's still great. And yeah, this time I gave it 4 stars, but it may go back up again. Who knows? It certainly won't go down. But yeah, really, really liked this film. One of my favorite Audrey Hepburn performances. What about you?
Yeah, so on the first watch I gave it 3.5 stars. It's gone up to a 4 this time. So it went up for me. I kind of disagree with it about it being ambiguous. I don't think it's ambiguous at all. I think they just don't end up together, which, like, it happens.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know, but here's
I know, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's like I think it's pretty clear that it's like, right, her obligations to her kind of status and our country, etc., etc. It's not gonna happen. Like, it can't happen. So it's obviously pretty simple. Exactly. No, I mean, and like Gregory Peck is amazing in that final scene. Audrey Hepburn is amazing throughout the film. She's just like, it's my favorite performance of hers. And there's been a bunch of great ones. I haven't seen too many William Wyler films, but it's quite a high bar, I would say, of the ones that I have. So I think it's just this podcast is being released on Valentine's Day. Whether or not people get around to it on Valentine's Day is up to them. But I think it's like, maybe on Valentine's Day you would want like a more upbeat, happy ending. But it is like, as far as actual like, the romance at the center of it is absolutely, like, brilliant. Like, it's sold so well from the two actors. So it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's worth noting as well that William Wyler also directed The Children's Hour, starring Audrey Hepburn, and that film also, more so, has a sad ending. Fucking hell, has that movie got a sad ending? But yeah, Wyler kind of knows what he's doing. Yeah, I've seen 3 Wyler films. I've seen that, this, and then Wuthering Heights as well with Laurence Olivier, which I quite liked. But yeah, William Wyler is very good, and I'm sure he will definitely be back on the podcast again sometime. Because, yeah, he's got plenty big films under his belt. But, yeah, as far as next up on the podcast, it's David Lean, who, as far as I'm aware, we've never covered before, have we?
We have not. Is it David Lean, or is it the other one? We'll go with David Lean, because we can always just, we'll release.
Yeah, Brief Encounter.
Brief Encounter, okay, yeah. I wasn't sure if it started either.
Brief Encounter. You haven't seen it before, have you?
I've not seen Brief Encounter, no.
Oh, get ready.
Yeah.
Brief Encounter.
It's one I've wanted to watch for a long time, so this podcast is a great excuse for me to catch up on stuff that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing, and one of the few British films that we'll actually have covered on the podcast. We haven't covered many of them, if any. But Hitchcock. No, Hitchcock was in America. Anyway, in the meantime,
The Spy Who Came In From the Cold is a British film.
Say it again?
The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Of course, that's a British film. Yeah. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you very much, everyone. That has been the Golden Hour Film Podcast. A shorter episode this week, it is safe to say. But yeah, Audrey Hepburn's grand debut on the podcast. followed by David Leans, who is, fuck, I love that movie and I cannot wait to talk about it. In the meantime, thank you very much. I have been Harry Bailey.
I've been Shane Mulvaney.
And that was the Golden Hour Film Podcast, episode 43, Roman Holiday. Goodbye.